What's up? What's up? What's good? Shalom, shalom. Right? I know y'all see the title. Vladimir Putin, the real Pooh sheisty. Right? We're gonna get into some current events and stuff. I got a few articles from the Daily the Daily Herald and the Washington Washington Journal. Right? So of course, these are Western newspaper companies. So we're gonna have to read through the small and in the little smoke screens they try to set, but but still, it's informative, and give us some understanding of what's going on, right? Because whether we believe it or not, I'm saying the West is scared of the BRICS, because the BRICS is coming together. They're forming alliances with countries that you know been kind of not feeling America and their allies like that. You know, Putin and them in China, they going throughout Africa, scooping up a lot of those African countries. You know, giving them a better deal than the Western power structure have been giving them over the last few hundred years. You know, getting a lot of these countries to drop the American dollar. Right, so there's a lot that been going on, because these countries are gearing up for war. you know, in the news when they talk about the BRICS and all that stuff, they try to make it seem like it's just a economic thing that's going on because they don't want to put the people in panic. But you need money for war because war costs. So they getting their mind right, money right, and they're getting ready for war. Like Matt Bleak said, that's what they're doing. So then you also have Putin, going into Cuba, well, not Cuba, Venezuela, meeting with them, putting a bomber over there that can, you know, had a capacity to drop nuclear bombs over America, right? So a lot's going on, right? And they're trying to downplay it, but if you look at the news coverage the uh, from the '60s and the '70s when Russia tried to bring nukes over to Cuba, they called that the Cuban Missile Crisis, and that was like a big thing, right? But now they're trying to downplay it because they know what's going on, right? They know that their number is up. They're trying to buy time, hoping that they don't have to see these people one on one, but they are gonna have to see these people, and they just hoping that the Ukraine can just weaken them enough so they won't have to fight Russia at their full force. But not understanding that Russia still has a $250 million uh, soldiers that haven't even touched the battlefield yet. You know, and when I mean Russia, I mean like their combined armies with Russia, the BRICS, India, all them people together. You know what I'm saying? So they ready. Then America right now they doing like one of their biggest exercises. That they ever done. With NATO. You know, because they're trying to get ready, right? Because they know that inevitable is about to come, right? So without further ado, we're gonna get right into it. All praises to the Most High, and we do so only in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world mistakenly calls Jesus Christ, right? So let's start off with this one. This is out of the Daily Herald. It says Biden urges leaders to stand up to Putin, right? So, like, we'll look at the news. They're using our tax dollars, and making it seem like that Ukraine over there holding their own. But Biden is asking the world leaders to stand up to Putin, right? Because when you've been following the whole thing, some of the NATO members have not been fully complying with the sanctions on Russia. They've still been doing business with Russia because they need the oil, they need the food, right? So, like you read in Daniel 7 and 42 to 44, that they're not all on the same accord, right? Let's check it out. It says, United Nations President Joe Biden made his case before the UN, the General Assembly on Tuesday, that the world must remain united in uh, in defending Ukraine against Russia aggression, warning warnings that no nation can be secured if we allow Ukraine to be carved up, as he tries to rally support for uh, Kiev effort to repel nearly 19 months old Russian invasion that has no end in sight. See, they don't even see the ending of this thing. It doesn't even look like they're at the end, right? So how could Ukraine be holding their own? How they try to make us believe that Ukraine's just over there handling business, but they don't even see an end. They don't even see like the end to this whole thing right now, right? And what else it says? It says, as far as them allowing Ukraine to get carved up, right? So when you understand the Soviet Union, the SSR, the USSR, Ukraine was once a part of Russia. So Russia is trying to get their land back that was taken from them. So it's essentially a civil war, right? But the UN is in fear of Russia becoming a global power. This goes all the way back to World War II, you know, where the whole beef starts. So they don't want Russia, but it's too late. The snowball is rolling down the hill and it's getting bigger and bigger. In the West, it's panicking more and more, right? So let's keep reading. So it says, the U.S. president called world leaders let to not let support of Ukraine diminish, urging that Russia is countering counting on countries to grow tired of prolonged conflict in Kyiv, which will allow it to brutalize Ukraine without consequences. Russia alone is standing in the way of resolution, Biden argued, saying that Moscow price for peace was Ukraine cap, capitalization, Ukraine territory, and Ukraine's children, right? So now think about this. Now I have a post on my Facebook page. You can look at it where it shows the Ukraine army posing with a Nazi flag, right? So a lot of people was tripping when they heard Putin say that he's fighting against Nazism. So now, if we remember World War II, America and them was fighting against Nazism. Now they're supporting Nazism by essentially helping Ukraine. Because the Ukraine army, like I said, you can look on my post. I might share it after this video of Ukraine soldiers with the Nazi swastika flag, and they're holding it up next to their Ukrainian flag, right? So, and this is the country that America wants to defend, right? When they supposedly be against Nazis, right? And a lot of people probably don't understand how could they be a Nazi country with a Jewish president. That's because Nazis is a political party. See, we've been thinking that a Nazi is just like some type of gang. A Nazi is no different than a Democrat or a Republican. They're political parties, right? It just so happened in Germany, they just took over the whole political landscape and they was running everything, right? So we can't get confused by thinking that it's some type of rebel gang. It's a political party, like in every other political party, right? So it says, I asked you this: if we abandon our core principles of the United States to appease an aggressor, can any member state in this body feel confident that they are protected? Biden said in this address. If we allow Ukraine to be carved up, is is the independence of any nation secure, right? So they're coming off like they're really about peace, but these people are, you know, imperialists. They running an empire here, and Russia and the rest of the BRICS is threatening their empire that they are running. So of course they're trying to do whatever they can do to secure their empire. Think about it like Star Wars, right? The rebels was fighting against the empire, and the empire did what all the little stuff they could do to stop the rebels from winning, to stop the Jedi's from defeating them, right? So this is what we're witnessing here. So it says, he continued, I respectfully suggest the answer is no. The president forceful rhetoric on Ukraine appeared appeared aimed not just for a global audience, but for Washington, where a increasingly isolation strain of the Republican Party is jeopardizing the prospects of the U.S. successful replenishing the steady flow of aid that has gone to Kiev since the war began in February 2022. Right. So all our tax money is getting took to these people, right? And then they want to tell you, oh, the Mexicans is coming in and taking all the money. You know, that's why we can't pay y'all. No, you got somebody named Jim Crow Joe Biden in office giving all the money that could have went to you to some foreign country that's not even part of NATO, right? Because they so scared of Russia. That's what's happening here. So while you out here trying to, blame the Mexican people for, taking the aid, because they say, well, we can't pay you this or we can't support this, thing because we got to help the immigrants that's coming in. That's a lie. That's just one of their tactics, how they always try to put people against each other to take the heat off of them. Right? Hold on. Take my camera. All right, Salakia. So yeah, that's part of the trick that they always use to try to take the heat off of them, right? And have us fighting amongst each other. Like the Mexicans is coming here and they paying themselves. They're getting the money from them, but we don't put those logical things together because we like, oh, the Mexicans taking all our money. Like somebody has to hire them and somebody has to pay them, right? So come on now, just not be simple. So it says, but yeah, like I said, back to my rant too. Like I said, so they're giving billions and billions of dollars to these people in a losing effort, right? Vladimir Zelensky, the president, is not doing nothing but stealing money from America because it's not working, right? But they want to convince us that this is working, this is profitable. So that's why a lot of us didn't receive a certain amount on our tax return because majority of that had to go over there, right? So you have stuff that need to be done here, but he's telling you that we can't do anything for you, but at the same time giving them billions and billions of dollars each month. That's crazy. That should be crazy to anybody. His priorities is jacked up. Then let alone, people think it's a few people out there thinking about reparations, you could throw all of that out the window. Because they're willing to give money to everybody else for their cause, but not for you, right? So it says, the party is jeopardizing the prospect of the U.S. Successfully replenishing the steady flow of aid that has gone to Kiev since the war began in February 2022. Biden administration has asked Congress to greenlight a additional $24 billion in security and humanitarian aid for Ukraine. Ain't that something? We can't get a dime out of these people, but they're about to try to approve another $24 billion after they done gave them way over $100 billion already, and they still don't see no progress of the money that they've been putting into this war. This is retarded. Anybody with a little bit of sense can see that the you know that this is not profitable for anybody, right? So it says, but the Republicans who control the House have all but ignored that request as lawmakers scramble to ensure government funding remains flowing beyond the end of September, right? So these people are in the midst of a government shutdown because they don't have the proper funds to actually do to run their government. But then they're still trying to approve another 24 billion to go out of the country to a whole nother country to help them. Wouldn't a logical thing to do while you passing out hundreds and hundreds of billions to these people, use that to help balance your books so you won't have to do a government shutdown? Wouldn't that be logical? But of course, he's not logical. This government system is not logical. When you're in fear, when you're scared of something, a lot of times you don't think logical. You think in panic mode, and that's what we're witnessing. So it says, the House, the House all but ignored the request of the lawmakers scrambling to ensure government funding remained flowing beyond the end of September. Uh, Animated by the views of the former President Donald Trump, a faction of vocal faction of House Republicans remained steadfast, opposed to more Ukraine aid, and even as other GOP lawmakers, primary in the Senate, continue to advocate support for Kiev to dissuade Russia from spreading its attack beyond Ukraine's borders. That ain't gonna work. But that's what they're in hope of. If they keep on feeding them money, we just like I said, we can see Russia is using their C team. They're not even using their B team or their A team to fight against Ukraine. The A and B team is on reserve for the real fight, which is going to be against NATO, America, and their allies. That's the real fight. They're doing all of this with their, you know, their C team soldiers, right? And so, and America wants to give them more money to fight against Russia, in hopes that it will to slow them down, diminish their resources. It don't work like that. It's not gonna work like that because Korea is stepping up, saying they got his back, um, and giving them weapons. Uh, Iran is giving Russia support. China, all these countries, India, Arabia, all these countries is helping Russia. So it's not because we would think that it's just Russia out here versus the world. Russia got a team just like America got a team, right? But the only difference is the Russia team is moving like a unit. America's team is splintered because some of them is still supporting Russia, some of them is are fighting amongst themselves, and the rest of them scared, right? So it says Ukraine and its allies with their families are broken. Wait, let me read it right. Ukraine and all their ties with their families are broken. This is clearly a genocide, Zelensky said in remarks that ran 15 minutes. The meeting often disregarded time limit, right? So Zelensky is describing what's going on as a genocide. They're getting hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars to fight the Russians, but they're still getting their ass whooped to the point that this man gets in front of the UN and say, "Oh, it's a genocide happening over there." So obviously, the money that you're giving these people are not working. Okay, so what are we doing here? And besides, that's a civil war. That's an in-house problem right there. Russia versus Russia. Whether they want to call themselves Ukraine or not, they're still Russians, right? So let's keep going. And it says the International Criminal Court issued a arrest warrant in March for Russian President Vladimir Putin and another official accusing them of abducting children from Ukraine. Russian officials have denied any forced transfers of children, saying some of the Ukrainian youngsters are in foster care. Right now, ain't that the pot calling the kettle black? Now, I'm not vouching for Russia, but isn't that the pot calling the kettle black when our Mexican brothers and other South American brothers coming into this country, they are kidnapping their children and wrapping them up in lemon foil and throwing them in a cage. That's what America is doing. And now they want to say that Putin is kidnapping children. But again, they're trying to bolster support for their war efforts and to get more people on board because a lot of people know that this is bull. So they're trying to come up whatever they can come up with, to try to bolster their support when they're doing the same thing on their borders. The little determined camps that they got, like I said, separating people from their families and all that, right? That's what they're doing here, right? So the pot is calling the kettle black, and we got. That's why we gotta dissect these things to understand what's really going on. Because I mean, and I know some people, like I said, especially when it comes to our South American brothers south of the border, people forget that half of this country was Mexico before it got stolen from them. Then they made laws saying that you can't be here unless you have proper papers, right? So we gotta keep in mind that because some of us be so insensitive to Mexicans that even a lot of our Mexican brothers is messed up in the head where they actually think that they're in a whole nother country now. When this whole half of this country, everything west of the Mississippi River was once part of Mexico, right? But anywho, let's get back to Pooh Shiesty. So Russia gets its chance to address the General Assembly on Saturday. The Deputy UN Ambassador Dmitry Polinsky sat in Russia's seat during Zelensky's address. Did he did he speak? Polinsky said with a worried smile. When the ambassador with with a weary smile. Uh, an ambassador press report asked about his reaction to the address. I didn't notice he was speaking. I was on my phone. Yeah, that's funny, right? So Zelensky's over there pouring his heart out for support, and the Russian ambassador is just like texting away on his phone, not even listening to it because it's all garbage, right? And a lot of our people getting soaked up into this thing, right? And it's crazy. We're going, like I said, let's continue. Zelensky took to the world stage at a sensitive point in his country campaign to maintain international support for its fight. Nearly 19 months after Moscow launched a full-scale invasion, Ukrainian forces are 3 months into a counteroffensive that has not gone as fast or as well as initially hoped. So again, they're getting billions and billions of dollars to still fight a losing war. That's like you keep giving your money to a gambling addict and hoping that and they keep coming back every time they lose. They keep coming back. You just keep feeding them more money, right? That's 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 not smart, right? But this is the country that we live in. This is how they're getting down. So the Ukraine and its allies cast the country cause a battle for the rule of international law, for the sovereignty of every country with a powerful and potential expansionist neighbor, for the stabilization of global food and energy supplies. Russia insists its war is justified, claiming that it is defending Russia speaker, speakers in Ukraine from a hostile government and protecting Russian interests against NATO uh, encroachments and more, which is true. When you follow the narrative, when you been following GOP politics, you would know that Russia is speaking truth right here because Russian the Russians and NATO had an agreement that Russia won't go this way and NATO won't go that way. But NATO has been going all the way that way. That's how Ukraine is even in the conversation because they've been trying to influence Ukraine, and Ukraine is right next to Russia. And Ukraine also used to be Russia, a part of Russia, until they made them split up. So NATO has broken the agreement first by trying to get all the surrounding countries around Russia to be on their side. And Russia like hold up. Like what is y'all doing? That's just like say like you in a game or you just have enemies or whatever however you want to do it. And then you live on the street, then all of a sudden your next door neighbor house is somebody that want to kill you. Then your next door to your right is somebody that want to kill you. Then your next door neighbor that's directly in front of you is somebody that want to kill you. Then the two houses next to him is people that want to kill you. And you're like, damn, I can't, it's like, it's hard for me to breathe. I can't go outside like that. You know, it's going to be, you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to defend yourself at a point in time. So this is how Russia is feeling. That more countries that NATO influenced that's close to the Russian border, the closer they're closing in on Russia. And they're not just influencing them, they're putting weapons in these countries. So whenever they get fully surrounded Russia, then they can just push the button and attack Russia. It's just like how the police operate. When they raid a house or they, sending in the SWAT, they make sure the whole house is surrounded. They make sure they have all the numbers. So if anything pop off, they can subdue the situation because they have the numbers. So this is how America is doing it. And Russia is not no fool. They see this. So they're like, dude, we're supposed to have an agreement that I won't do this and you're not going to do that. But you're doing that. So now you're going to make me do this. So we have to understand the whole history of this fight and how it becomes the way we see it today. And don't be so caught up in this westernized news stuff where they just try to make it seem like Russia's the aggressor, they're the bad guy. That's like you throw a rock and then you hide your hand. Or that kid when you in school teasing you and doing all this type of stuff, he hit you. Then when you hit him back, the teacher didn't see them hit you, but they saw you hit him, and now you get in trouble. That's what they're essentially doing to Russia. And of course, I'm not against. I'm not for Russia or neither one of them. Because if you know, you know how I feel about all of them. But I'm just laying the facts down, right? So, where we at with this thing? All right, so then Zelensky took the world stage. Let me start right here. Zelensky took the world stage uh, at a sensitive point in the country's campaign, maintaining international support for its fight. Nearly 19 months after Moscow launched a full-scale invasion, Ukraine forces are 3 months in a counteroffensive that has not gone as fast or as well as initially hoped. Ukraine and its allies cast the country cause as a battle for the rule of international law, for the sovereignty of every country with a powerful and potential expansionist neighbor, and for the uh, stability of global food and energy supplies. Russia insists its war is justified, claiming that it's defending Russian speakers speakers in Ukraine from a hostile government and protecting Russian interests against NATO encroachment and more. The war has raged longer and losses have been greater than Russia hoped, and the fighting has spurred widespread international uh, condemnation against Moscow. But the Kremlin also has influenced France by having joined the chorus of a century of a century. China and India, for instance, have stacked out a neutral position to have many Middle Eastern and African nations, many Latin American and Caribbean countries prefer to focus the world attention on other global issues, including climate change and conflict in Africa, right? So they're trying to act like these countries that's messing with Russia, they're not down with Russia like that. They just trying to come to a conclusion about some global warming and all that stuff, right? That is that, like I said, more. That's not what's happening here, right? Because Ethiopia, Sudan, they were begging Russia to help them to let them help them fight against the Ukrainians. China has undying support for Russia, right? So a lot of these Latin American countries, like Venezuela, that's allowing the Russian president to come there to set up shop. So they're like I said. So this is a lie, right? But we have to be able to read through these things when you understanding what's going on. It says Moscow is keen to display its global influence and its relationship with China and insists that it cannot be internationally isolated by the U.S. and its allies. Because China got its back and getting all their supplies from China, right? Meanwhile, Ukraine is concerned that backing from its allies may be able and even have supply of billions worth of arms, but the fear that their stockpiles are shrinking and that defense contractors are struggling to boost production to produce production lines, right? So they're getting all this money, all these weapons, and they talking about their supplies is dwindling. That's because they're losing. They're getting their butt kicked, right? So again, all that stuff. So what you gonna do? You're gonna keep sending them more? Like that's gonna work? If you sent them over 100 billion something already, and they're not doing nothing with that, they basically lost a lot of it because they're asking for 24 more billion. So what's the sense of giving them more money? That's retarded. You don't. If somebody repeatedly keeps showing you that they're bad with money, you don't continue to give them more money. Nobody does that. But this is what your government is doing, right? So it says the hours before Zelensky spoke at the UN Allied Defense Leader convened at the U.S. military base in Germany to discuss the next steps. Some nations pledged further money and weapons, but the but a key sticking point is whether to supply long-range missiles at Kyiv uh, insists insists it needs, right? So that's another problem. So not only has America gave these people hundreds of billions of dollars, other countries is giving these people money, and they're coming to the UN talking about their supplies is dwindling. They have nothing really. What are you doing over there? That's the question that people should be asking. What are you doing? So obviously, it's a losing effort. That's why a lot of these countries is going to end up splitting up from NATO and eventually end up attacking America, like you read in the book of Obadiah and you read in the book of Revelation and other places that these countries is going to, in Jeremiah, these countries is going to eventually attack America because it's a losing effort, and they're going to see that. A lot of them see it now. That's why it's conflict amongst them, right? Then it says, The U.S. Congress is weighing Biden's request to provide as much as 24 billion more in military aid and humanitarian aid to the Ukrainians, but we can't get it done for nothing, right? No more PPP loans, none of that stuff. It's over with. But they're giving all these people this money, right? Um, to Ukraine, aimed and growing partisanship divide, partisanship divide over spending on the conflict. Zelensky is scheduled to spend time today on the Capitol Hill to meet with Biden at the White House. After landing Monday in New York, Zelensky suggests that the UN needs to answer for more uh, to need to answer for allowing his country invaders to sit at the table of power. If Russia is still a place for Russian terrorists in the United Nations, it's a question to all members of the United Nations. Zelensky said after visiting uh, wounded Ukraine service members at Staten Island University Hospital. Russia is a permanent veto willing member of the UN Security Council. So Vladimir's like, dude, like we fighting against Russia, but y'all got allowing Russia to have a seat in the UN. Like, so this nigga not even part of the whole thing, and he trying to tell them what to do. I mean, but it's crazy how this stuff is going down, and we don't see what's going on right now because we so caught up in whatever we caught up in. We don't know that Russia got their fingers circling the button, just waiting for them to pop off and act crazy. Because Putin already told from the get go. Putin said, if America does this, we will take it nuclear. He jumped straight out the window. He didn't say we just gonna go to war with America. He said we're gonna take it nuclear. And guess what? Russia got a lot of bombs, and their bombs is way powerful than America's. That's a fact. People wanna, we so brainwashed think America is just this great military power that they can never be beaten. You know who else thought it couldn't be beaten? Rome. You know who else thought? Greece. Britain, England, France, all these countries also thought it couldn't be beaten. Spain and Portugal, they thought it couldn't be beaten. So we need to get out of this mind frame thinking that America the Great, like they're just this infallible country. No, America's going down in this coming war, right? It says is entrusted with maintaining international peace and security. Zelensky took the UN nation to task even before the war. And one memorable example he lamented at the General Assembly in 2021 that the UN was a retired superhero who long forgotten how great they once were. A former comedian. That's the thing. This guy is a former comedian. This president of Ukraine is a former comedian. This is how you know this is all a joke. This is crazy. This man was once a comedian, and now he's running the country, and he's running scared. It says a former comedian actor who took office in 2019. Zelensky later became a wartime leader wearing a military fatigue, rallying citizens at home and appearing virtually in person before numerous international bodies. At the Staten Island Hospital, he awarded medals to military members who had lost limbs with help from New Jersey-based a charity called Kind Deeds. 18 troops have been fitted for prosthetics and are undergoing outpatient physical therapy, hospital leader said. We all will be waiting for you back home, Zelensky told those he met. We absolutely need everyone of you. We absolutely need everyone of you, right? So That's what they have to say on that, right? So we see that these people is not able to handle business and do what they're supposed to do, and they're asking for more money in a losing effort, right? Let's get something else, right? So this is the Washington Journal. We're just gonna read a little bit of this. It says from India. This is a so now this is America's allies. So it says from India to Australia and Southeast Asia, in that the Biden administration hope will alter the strategies of landscape against China. Beijing has been flexing its expansion power against neighboring states, while North Korea has ramped up its missile program and reject diplomacy outreach. So North Korea is getting their mind right, money right, and ready for war, and they're not talking to nobody. It says that they rejected diplomacy, meaning we ain't trying to talk to none of y'all niggas. It's on, right? We're getting our weapons right, and North Korea been wanting to fight for years, right? They've been wanting to fight. They've been wanting to show people that they bought it. You know what I'm saying? They've been wanting to show people that they got the juice, right? And they teamed up with China. And China is teamed up with Russia. And Russia is teamed up with Korea. They all together. They're the BRICS. Just like how America has if one fight, we all fight. They have the same policy. If one fight, we all fight. Then China is trying to go to Taiwan. Then Taiwan is messing with the NATO. So if China goes to war with Taiwan, that's World War III right there. Boom, it's on and popping. Right? And China is making plans to invade Taiwan. And they have the support of Korea. They have the support of Russia. So we need to understand how close we are to this World War III. While we out here just, you know, getting all caught up on uh, Brittany Reiner and how many people she done allowed to penetrate her, and some Suki Hanas and some sexy reds, and and whoever our minds is being occupied with. It's some real stuff that's going on in the world. A lot of stuff is happening. The American dollar is falling. Food prices are going up. Energy prices are going up. Famine is on the way. A lot of people is going to go hungry if they don't know what's going on, right? Because we so caught up in a lot of other stuff. We don't see that war is at the door. Like I said before, we never lived through a World War III, but our grandparents did. And when you look at how the country America was doing during World War II, it was horrible for everybody because all their supplies had to go to the troops, the food and all that stuff. So people was barely making it during World War II. It wasn't until after World War II that America became this big, great, rich, powerful country. But during that time, they were struggling. And guess what? When this when World War III kicks off, it's gonna be way worse. Because the Bible says it's gonna be a time on earth that no one ever seen before, right? And guess what though? This time America's not gonna come out when the smoke clears. They're gonna be devastated, destroyed, decimated when the smoke clears, according to Bible prophecy, right? That's what pastor is not telling you. You go to these churches, and pastor is not explaining to you what's going on in the world. Pastor is singing and dancing, chucking and jiving, telling you everything gonna be okay. Believe in Jesus and praise the Lord and whatever little stuff that they're doing. But they're not breaking down the Bible scriptures and letting you know we are living in these prophecies and things is happening, right? And we need to get right by keeping these commandments in the faith. Because it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. The Bible says a third of humanity is going to die. That's like over 2 billion people on the planet is going to die. 2 billion people. It's only 7 to 8 billion people on the planet. And 2 billion of them is going to be dead in an instant when this World War III thing kicks off for real. Right? But pastor not saying that because he just too busy singing and dancing, trying to take all your tithe money so he can buy him a new Benz and pay his mortgage on his house while you go back to your bad neighborhood that you live in. Right? That's what's happening here. Not telling us the truth. So it says, this is this is a new era of partnership, Biden said at news conference at Camp David, uh, standing alongside with South Korea and Japanese leaders. U.S. officials described the summit as historic, given that previous attempt to nudge uh, Tokyo and Seoul and Seoul to cooperate has been undetermined uh, by lingering animosities over Japan uh, colonial occupation of Korea, which ended after World War II. Biden praised Yoon and Kishida for showing political courage in mending ties to move that official to move uh, that officials said came a move that officials said came despite negative public opinion in the leaders' respective countries, right? So, and that's another thing. Get on Japan real quick. Japan is a bunch of punks, straight up and down. North Korea been throwing missiles towards Japan for ever since I can remember when Obama was in office, and 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 Japan don't do nothing but complain to America. Like if somebody is throwing rocks at your house, you're gonna go knock on their door and see what the hell going on. You're not gonna be like, oh well, such and such, right? Complaining to America. That's what Japan been doing. Because North Korea has been throwing missiles at Japan and purposely dropping them very close to Japan Island in the water to let them know we can hit your ass if we wanted to. You know, so like I said, Japan is a bunch of punks, straight up and down. So let's get let's jump over here. So like I said, we ain't gonna read the whole thing. We got about a few more articles we'll get into. It says the treaty organization, instead of officials, are agreeing to step up consultations on security threats and committing a new three-way hotline. Uh, Sullivan dismissed the criticism from China that its nations were moving towards a East Asian version of NATO. It's a partnership. Is not against anyone. It's for something and something. It is for a version of Indo Pacific that is free, open, secure, and prosperous. He said. Right. Um, Trying to see should I go back on this article. Okay, yeah, let me just read some context in that. Yeah, I'm gonna go back just a tad bit. So it says even so, South Korea and Japan has robust trade and commercial ties with China, limiting their willingness to openly align against Beijing. Those limits include codifying elements of their military coordination and cooperation on Taiwan. The island democracy and U.S. partner that Beijing has threatened to annex by force, said Bob Rapson, a retired U.S. diplomat who served several tours in South Korea and in Japan. Okay, so yeah, so South Korea and Japan, they doing a lot of trade with China, right? And this is all America's fault because America used to, produce a lot of goods and manufacture a lot of things, but then they got lazy. They wanted cheap labor because America is always looking for since they got rid of slavery, they always been looking for the cheapest way to do things. So then they shipped a lot of their factories and capabilities over to China. Now China is the number one producer of products, and now they also giving selling things and trading with Japan and South Korea, which is on the flip side, NATO allies. But then they got this tension going on between China because China want to go into Taiwan. So America's trying to make sure Japan and South Korea is on board because just in case anything pops off, they want to make sure whose side they on. So this is it's bananas. It's crazy, right? What's going on? So it says Biden said his plans to speak to Chinese leaders Xi Jinping this fall follow up on a meeting last November. Initiative uh, initiative agrees to buy the initiative agrees to buy three allied cover security technologies and economic corporations uh, from bolstering intelligence sharing to create a monetary system to detect disruption to supply chains and including semiconductors and other advanced technology. They also agreed to combine efforts to their countries of South Korea, right? So, like I said, that's what That's what they need. Those America needs those semiconductors. That's why they're trying to have a little uh, solidarity on that side, because if they get cut out of the semiconductors, then American technology ain't gonna be what it's supposed to be because they need those semiconductors. But America did the boo boo the fool by giving all their manufacturing power to the Chinese, and then in return, I think America was selling the Chinese like global, like their GPS systems to for security. So China no longer wants to use the U.S. GPS technology for security because they're the enemy, which makes sense. Like, why am I dependent on your technology and we're enemies to protect me? You know, like that's like I'm not gonna. How can I trust you if I'm trying to protect my country? Because I think it was somewhere I read that when China be trying to detect missiles or certain air, because they do their little own missile tests. So when they do their little things and the stuff that the technology that they're using from America, it be glitching on them where they can't read if a missile was coming or not. So it makes sense when you think about it, because they're trying to make it seem like these people are just so horrible. Not that, of course, I don't agree with none of the stuff that they're doing, but we can't. We got to be honest and deal with truth here, right? So it doesn't make sense to take to the to take technology from your enemy that's supposed to defend you when you know that you're enemies. Why would your enemy give you a working technology? And that's why China like, look, we're gonna figure it out. We don't want to use your GPS technology for our security anymore. We're gonna do something else. So, like I said, so it's crazy, right? Let's get this real quick. This is Zelensky warning U.S. And this is I believe out of the Washington Journal. The Daily Herald. It says when hatred is weaponized against one nation, it never stops there. So ain't that the pot calling the kettle black? How many of us remember when the war first kicked off and all the black people wanted to leave out of Ukraine and they would not allow the black people to leave? It was forcing them into the army to make them fight against the Russians while they were allowing their Ukrainian people to leave, right? Or like I mentioned earlier, that you can go on my Facebook page. I have a post that shows the Ukrainian army with a Nazi flag swinging in the back that they're holding up next to their Ukrainian flag. But they want to talk about, hey, this is crazy. But this is what we don't, because we don't look into this stuff. Like I said, The news that we're concerned with is who killed who, who's having sex with who got the most money. But it's real stuff that's going on that we're not paying attention to. So it says the United States. It says start here. It says Putin is using energy, food, and even children against the Ukraine. He tells the other world leaders. It says United States. United Nations Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said Tuesday that Russia is weaponizing everything from food to energy to abducting children is in this war against Ukraine, and he warned the world leaders that the same could happen to them. Now check this out. He's saying that Russia is abducting children into their war efforts. Right now, what is not being said here? How Zelensky is begging for all the Ukrainians that they allowed to leave out the country. He's begging them to come back and saying that we need you to fight against the Russians. He wants them to come back to the country to fight against the Russians. So you allowed them to leave once the war kicked off. Now you're getting your butt kicked, and now you begging for them to come back. You're sending for them to return back to Ukraine to do their civic duty to defend their country. That's what you want. But you're blaming Russia for kidnapping children to make them fight. So I don't know who should we believe here, right? How we know in your desperate effort to fight against the Russians, you're not forcing people to fight like how you were when the black people was trying to leave out of Ukraine, and you was forcing them to go to the front lines and fight against Russia. How we know that's not happening with the Ukrainian children, right? That's crazy, right? So that's why we know these people are the devil. We can't trust anything that they say, right? So it says the Ukrainian when hatred is weaponized against one nation, it never stops there, he said at the UN General Assembly annual top level meeting. The global of the pres the, the goal of the present war against Ukraine is to turn our land, our people, our lives, our resources into weapons against you, against the international uh, rule-based order. The Ukraine war in Ukraine has deepened major global supply distributions caused by the pandemic during a spike in food and energy prices, jolting, jolting the global uh, economy and increasing hardship in many developing countries. Right? So he's blaming the fact that people not the food prices and energy prices on Russia, right? Because of the war. But then Russia just shipped about what 60 tons of grain to an African country, right? So, like I said, we understand what's going on here. Of course, Russia took over. They doing their thing, and they got the grains. So Ukraine is not able to move grain around the world like how they once was, because a lot of the countries get grain, but now Russia has it, and then they gave it to some African nations, right? So, and they're trying to make it. It's just crazy. We gotta read it between the lines and follow what's really going on. And we get caught because we look at only American sources for news, you know, and we have to understand it's other news sources that we can look at, you know, like the RT news, and see it from the other side, and then we can make a logical conclusion on what's going on, right? And it says the war in Ukraine has deepened major global distributions caused by the pandemic during the okay, I read that decades old energy supply channels to Europe from Russia, a major oil and gas producer, were halted or severely disturbed uh, by the war due to the sanctions and trades. And trade disputes, pipeline shutoff, and major push by Russian countries to find alternative sources. So basically, in the effort of the UN, NATO trying to sanction Russia and cut off different supplies and stuff, they're actually starving their own people. You know, this is why we go to the grocery store, food is being raised, and now they're trying to do some lab grown shit to try to feed us you know because the production is down. So now they they're passing laws where they have lab grown chicken. They got all these bioengineered food now that people are going to end up consuming, right? And don't know what the hell that stuff will do to your body. You know, if we getting cancer and all these diseases off of eating the food that we're eating now, who knows what type of stuff going to come with eating that type of stuff, right? So, and, and that's because in an effort to try to starve out Russia, they're actually starving their own people. This is why, like I said, we go back to the book of Daniel 7, chapter 7 and 42 and 44, we see why all these nations end up turning on America at the end. They're cool right now, but then it's going to come to a point where they're going to be like, I'm tired of struggling. Just go join a winning team over there with the bricks, right? That's what's going to happen. So moving on. So it says, halted, boom, boom, boom. It says, severely disrupted by the war due to sanctions, trade uh, disputes, pipeline shut off, and major push by Western countries to find the alternative sources. Both Russia and Ukraine also are major grain exporters, and Russia withdrew this past summer from a deal that allows shipments of Ukrainian grain throughout the Black Sea. Zelensky pointing out to the food and fuel crunches he enlightened have highlighted what Ukraine says were kidnappings of at least tens of thousands of children taken from Ukraine after Moscow invasion. What will happen to them, right? So then, so that's he's trying to make his case, right? And to steal more money from people, right? Still more about tax dollars, right? And it's just crazy. Let's get this. So this says, so another article we can get into. It says, the Kremlin. I think this is from the Daily Herald again. It says the Kremlin says it downed a drone in Moscow attack. Right? It says Russia Defense Ministry said its air defense system shot down a Ukraine drone in the center of Moscow Friday, the latest demonstration of Ukraine's ability to conduct strikes deep in Russia territory. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sabyin said on the Telegram messaging app that drone debris fell near the Expo Century Fairgrounds, located in Moscow City complex, which houses several Russian government agencies. Authorities told Russian state news agency TASS that the debris damaged in the outer wall of the pavilion, leaving about 30 square meters of the wreckage in the area. Repeated drone strikes have brought the conflict home to Russia living far away from the front lines in Ukraine. The Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov recently told Russian journalists that the ramp-up attack present a obvious threat to Russian capital. Moscow has stepped up measures to counter the strike, he said, but the unmanned aerial vehicles continue to penetrate Moscow airspace. Russian authorities have reported reported at least 5 drone strikes in the capital since the start of summer, including attacks in Moscow city complex. The area experienced another scare later Friday when a false alarm about a potential drone strike prompted a evacuation at the complex. Ukraine authorities didn't publicly comment on this strike uh, either earlier this summer. However, some officials characterized such attack as means to bring the war closer to Russia's population uh, uh, insulated from the military action. Uh, Olowinski, uh, Denovo, the head of Ukraine National Security and Defense Council, when asked about the Moscow strike in July, said the conflict is a war symbol, and so everything related in Moscow is a fair game. Friday strike uh, disputed air traffic in Russia capital, and country aviation authority said that said on Telegram 7 flights were rerouted to uh, airports in other cities before authorities lift the restriction on operations at four Moscow airports. Right. So now you see Ukraine is trying to get bold and make attacks uh, on a Russian soil. Right. It says Ukraine forces are in the middle of an offensive that aims uh, to retake swaths of territory in the eastern and southern parts of the country. One strategy seeks to construct constrict the flow of supplies to Russian troops in southern Ukraine from Russia-occupied Crimea by launching a far-reaching strike on logistic routes. Outsourcing intelligence analyst says that one of the Moscow attacks this summer was carried out with a Ukrainian long-range drone known as Bobber or Beaver. The use of domestically produced drones, provides Ukraine with more latitude to target areas deep in Russian territory. Western authorities have restricted the use of Western supplied long-range weapons to strike within Russian borders. We won't be asking anyone how to use the weapons we produce in our country to destroy the aggressor where we see fit, said Denabov, speaking about local drone productions, right? So we see, like I said, the war thing is amping up. There's no end in sight because this thing is going to split off into a bigger war, which we know as World War III. All right, let's get into this last article. So it says this is North Korea vows to support for Moscow summit with Putin, right? So, like I said, we see that on the other hand, the BRICS is coming together, right? Like Iraq, I mean not Iraq, Iran and Saudi Arabia have been enemies for a while, but China went in there and brokered a deal with them, and now they're on board. They say, look, I know y'all don't get along, but we have a bigger enemy. Those Americans. Those Americans. Let me see, that's my Chinese accent. Those Americans. They say we got a bigger enemy. So y'all need to get it together. Arabia and Iran. We need to work together to take out our common enemy because we all don't like them people over there. Those Americans, right? So now North Korea, Kim vows full support for Moscow's at summit with Putin, right? So Korea is like, look, I'm down. We ride like bad boys for life. We ride together, we die together. Because, like I said, Korea been about that. Korea been wanting war with the West. Because people sleep on Korea. They think Korea is just this primitive country that don't have no type of nuclear capabilities, but they keep showing you every summer, every year that they're capable of hitting Japan if they wanted to. That's why they keep throwing bombs close to Japan mainland to let them know, like, if we really wanted to get you, we'll get you, right? And but then on the flip side, even if Korea don't have it like that, they just bluffing. Guess who got it like that? Russia got it like that. Russia got over 500 something nuclear bombs. They have way more than enough if they want to help supply uh, Korea with some bombs. And the type of bombs that Russia got, you don't gotta give them too many, because the bombs that Russia got, if Russia was to hit America, say like they want to hit Washington D.C. or even New York, the bombs they have will take out the whole East Coast, will be gone, right? Then what if they send more than one? That's the whole country in utter destruction, right? That's the type of stuff they working with. America got bombs that will just take out cities. You know what I'm saying? Or take out several cities depending on where they hit it at. But we gotta understand what's going on here. That's why America don't want to box with Russia, because their arms is not that long. So they hoping that they can weaken them. But Russia already told America, if they get to that point, we're going nuclear. You know what I'm saying? They didn't they didn't they didn't say, well, yeah, we gonna box with you. No, they say, look, you bring a knife to you bringing a knife to a gunfight, America. That's what Russia's basically telling them, right? That's what time Russia is on, right? So it says, uh, she CO South Korea, North Korea, Kim Jong Il vowed a full unconditional support, meaning unconditional, meaning we fucks with you, Russia. We ready to do this whole dang thing. Unconditional support for Russia. Vladimir Putin on Monday, uh, as as the two leaders isolated by West held a summit that the U.S. warned could lead to a deal to supply ammunition for Moscow war in Ukraine. Oh, it's going to supply ammunition to Moscow. What the hell y'all doing to Ukraine? Y'all supplying them ammunition. So how come Russia can't have somebody supply them? You see the hypocrisy? You see that? That's called hypocrisy. That's being a hypocrite. You want to get mad at Korea and Russia for them having a deal, but then you're giving billions and billions. That's just America alone. We're not even taking effect of the other countries that's helping Ukraine to fight against the Russians. This is hypocrisy. It says the meeting, which lasts over 4 hours at Russian airspace in the Far East, underscores how the two countries' interests are aligned. Putin is believed to be seeking one of the few things impoverished North Korea has in abundance: stockpiles of aging ammunitions and rockets for Soviet area weapons. So they act like I said, they acting like Korea over there hurting, calling them impoverished. You see the little shots they're trying to send, but Korea got them. Korea got them things over there. That's why America never wanted to mess with Korea neither, because they knew Korea was about that. So it says, such a request would mark a role reversal from the 1950 to 1953 Korean War, when Moscow gave weapons to supply uh, uh, Panalagang, 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 whatever you say, Palangang. I don't know, one of the little Korean ass words. But Dave Chappelle said on that skit, speaking all that Chinese, I can't hear you. We say, I don't understand you. But yeah, so what is it? Uh, uh, Pyongyang, Pyongyang, you say it like that. Pyongyang invasion of South Korea, and in the decades that followed when the Soviet Union sponsored North Korea. The division, the decision to meet the uh, uh, the Vos, the Vostomy, the Vostomy could uh, Cosmodrome, Russia's most important launch center on its own soil, suggests Kim is seeking Russian help in developing military uh, 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 re, recon, recon, what is that? Reconnaissance satellite. Oh, I'm sorry, reconnaissance satellite. Dang, I can't read. Reconnaissance satellites. Um, he has previously said that it, he has previously said that it's critical to enhancing the threat of his nuclear capability uh, uh, missiles, and North Korea has repeatedly failed to put this first military spy satellite into orbit. Putin met Kim limousine brought from uh, Pyongyang, Pyongyang, in the North Korean leader armed train at the launch facility, greeting his guests with a handshake of about 40 seconds. Putin, Putin of the Soviet Union wartime support, North Korean, uh, and said the talks would cover economic cooperation, humanitarian issues, and the situation in the region. Kim, in turn, pledged continued support for Moscow, making a apparent reference to the war in Ukraine. So they down for the cause. Russia is currently engaged in a just fight against uh, hegemonic forces to defend its sovereign rights, security, and interests, he said. The Democratic People of Republic of Korea has always expressed full and unconditional support for all measures taken by the Russian government, and I will take the opportunity to reaffirm that we will always stand with Russia on its anti-imperialism front in the front of independence. Right? So that's what he's saying. We're fighting against imperialism. You know, he's basically liking America and NATO to the dark side on Star Wars, right? To the Empire. That's what he's basically liking America to. So, and that's technically what they are, because you look at how they run things. America has a military base on almost every country that you can think of. That's why Russia is like when America is trying to when they're trying to influence Ukraine and other countries surrounding Russia. That's why Russia had to go on the offensive. We're like, hey, you're not about to put bombs right next door to me. I'm not on that with y'all. So, and y'all said y'all wasn't gonna do that. So now I got to get on that with y'all, right? So this is what we're seeing. But they want to paint it like Putin just woke up one day and chose violence. Like Putin was just going to sleep. He woke up, said, you know what, I'm choosing violence today. It didn't happen that way. Putin begged these people not to come close to his borders with their nuclear bombs. Because now you're trying to enclose me. You're trying to trap me. Right? So that's just like you about to fight somebody. Then the person you about to fight, all their friends or cousins, whoever, they slowly start surrounding you. In your mind, you're going to be like, damn, these people about to jump me. I'm about to get jumped. Right? So that's how Putin is looking at it. Like, you're putting you going to all these surrounding countries around me, putting bombs in there. You're going to, pretty soon, you're going to decide to use those bombs on me. Right? So, let's get it. North Korea may have tens of millions of agent artillery shells and rocket based on Soviet design that could bolster Russian forces in Ukraine, analyst says. Washington has accused North Korea of providing Russia with arms, including selling artillery shells to Russia mercenary groups, uh, mercenary group Wagner. Russia and North Korea officials denied such claims, but but uh, but either buying arms from or providing rockets technology to North Korea would violate international sanctions that Russia has previously supported, right? So, look at that. Russia and Korea is doing business, but then on the public eye, how things are set up, this is how you know America and then NATO runs everything. See, America can openly tell you that they're supporting Ukraine, they're giving them money, but Korea is not allowed to openly say that I'm supporting Russia, or Russia is not openly uh, allowed to say I'm supporting Korea, right? So that lets you know who's running this thing, right? And then what they say is a problem when they do it, when I do it, but it's cool when they do it, right? It's cool when NATO does it, but it's a problem when the BRICS do it, right? That's why they coming together, forming their own thing, trying to start their own version of the New World Order, right? So, and like I said, I know some people might get confused and think I'm all in support of Mother Russia, but no, I'm just stating the facts and explaining to you how this is all part of prophecy, how the Bible spoke about all of this, right? So it says, but neither, uh, but, uh, but, but either, but neither buying arms from or providing rocket technology to North Korea would violate international sanctions that Russia has previously supported. It would both underscore the deepened Russian isolation in the 18 months after its invasion of Ukraine due to increasing sanctions. So they're talking about, well, this is going to just further make, push Russia into isolation because we already sanctioned them. Okay, but Russia is still kicking y'all ass. So obviously, those sanctions have not did anything. Russia is controlling the food. So obviously, those sanctions haven't did anything. Y'all, y'all are talking about how Russia is controlling the energy market and the food market. So what are y'all really doing with these sanctions? It's crazy. But they will have you believe that Russia is in the corner right now trying to figure it out. If we're not actually reading what's going on. Because the last article we read, Zelensky was complaining about how Russia is using food and energy as a war weapon. So you can't have it both ways. Either your sanctions is working on Russia and you backing them down in the corner, or your sanctions is not working on Russia and they're finding other means to do what they gotta do. Right? We can't have it both ways. So, but it would both underscore the underscore and deepen Russian isolation in the 18 months after its invasion of Ukraine due to increasing sanctions that have cut off Moscow's economy from global markets and shrunk the circle of the world leaders willing to meet with Putin. Bullshit. Because Putin and them is doing fine. Because, like I said, we see what's going on. Why is y'all still trying to figure out how y'all can send more money to these people? Like I said, the last article we read, Zelensky is complaining about how Putin is weaponizing food and energy, right? And because Putin has a network behind him, he has China, uh, he has India, he has Korea, he has the African nations, and he's even getting some of the South American nations to ride with him. So we can't be fooled by this American Western news that's trying to tell us some stuff to make us think that everything that our tax money is going to is actually working out and stop us from panicking. If they really talk about the real, what's really happening, that Russia is about to try to blow this place off the map, people will be going scared, and then they will not be so much in support of what America is doing. They be trying to tell America, sit down at the table and talk to Putin so we can figure this stuff out. But America is so stubborn because the Most High put a spirit on them to be stubborn, right? Crazy. Just get it in the Bible. Enough of that. Right? Just get Ezekiel 12 and 21 real quick. Right? Let me get that. It says, I'm going to read it in the G&T too. So it says, in the world, and the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, what is that proverb that ye in the land of Israel saying? The days are prolonged, and every vision is failed. Tell them before thus said Yahweh power, I will make this proverb to cease, and they shall no more use it as a proverb in Israel, but shall say unto them, the days are at hand, and the effect of every vision, for there shall be no more any vain vision nor flattering divinations within the house of Israel. So we for I am the Lord, I will speak, and the words that I shall speak shall come to pass. It shall be no more prolonged. For in your days, O rebellious house, I will say the word and I will perform it, said the Lord. Right? So let's read it in the G&T. Right? Because, that's the thing with our people, right? So we got to understand how this goes. It says in the G&T, it's Ezekiel 12 and 21 in the G&T. It says, the Lord spoke to me, a mortal man, he said, why do people of Israel repeat the proverb? Time goes by and predictions come to nothing. So a lot of our people say, well, that Bible not true. Like nothing in that Bible happened or whatever, right? But we can see the prophecies in the Bible, and they're coming true. Right now, we're living in the book of Revelation, right? Right now, we're living in the book of Daniel when he's talking about the statue. And we're in the time of the toes mixed with clay and iron right now. During that time, we're at the end of this thing, right? And a lot of our people don't have the understanding because the leaders is not teaching us what's going on. You know, even when we were kids, we used to hear about the end of the world. We thought it was so far off. We won't see it in our lifetime. If we're lucky enough to live through everything, we're actually going to see the second coming of who the world calls Jesus Christ come back. We're living in that time, right? So it says, why do people uh, why do people of Israel repeat this proverb? Time go by and predictions come to nothing. Tell them that tell them what I, the servant Lord, have said about that. I will put an end to that proverb. So God said, you're no longer going to be saying, well, that ain't going to happen, or that's going to happen a long time ago. Like, why are you reading that Bible? That stuff happened a long time ago. You're not going to say those stuff anymore because you're going to start seeing things actually happen, like we're seeing right now. So it says, I won't be repeated. It won't be repeated in Israel anymore. Tell them instead, the time has come and the predictions are coming true. So that's what's happening. The time is coming and the predictions are coming true. For everybody that thought people, that we were crazy, now when we watch the news, we see things happening. We see that these things are happening, right? And they're ramping up. They're not slowing down. They're continuing until it gets worse, 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 and more worse. It says, among the people of Israel, there will be no more false visions or misleading prophecies. That I, the Lord, will speak to them And that's what, hold on, and that's what it is. Those false, it's talking about those pastors that sit in church that tell everybody everything's gonna be okay. They don't tell you what is going on right now. They don't prepare you for the global famine that's about to happen. Because we just read that Putin is controlling the damn food and he's using it as a weapon. It's only a matter of time before it hits over here, you know. And I was telling you during wartime, all the supplies is get transferred to the soldiers, because like I said, you can look up the conditions of what the everyday people in America was living through during World War II, right? So you have pastors that's not even speaking on these things. They're preaching this prosperity gospel, just telling you things to make you feel good. Our pastors is no more than a motivational speaker with a Bible in their hand. That's all they are doing. They're giving you motivational speeches that you can get from an inspirational speaker, but the only difference is they holding the Bible while they're doing it, and you thinking that they're some type of man or woman or God. But only thing they doing is hyping you up, being a pep rally, right? Instead of actually teaching you the truth of what's really going on, right? It says, among the people of Israel there will be no more false visions or misleading prophecies that we hear from these fake church leaders. I, the Lord, will speak to them, and what I say will be done. There will be no more delay in your own lifetime, you rebels. I will do what I have warned you I will do. I will, I have spoken, says the sovereign Lord. So God is saying everything that He written in this book, these prophecies, He's going to do it, and we're not going to no longer be able to say, "Oh, well, that ain't true," because we want to see these things happening. It says, "The Lord said to me, mortal man, the Israelites think that your visions as prophecies are about the distant future," and that's what our people think. Because I used to think that for a while. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. Like, part of me thought that, but then a part of me thought, like, maybe as I got a little older, maybe it is a real chance that we could see these things happening. Because I started looking at world events and stuff, right? So, but a lot of us also think, would think that though, that all this stuff is gonna happen years from now, right? We ain't gonna be here, you know. A lot of people is counting on the fact that they're not gonna be here. So, but it says the Israelites think that your visions and prophecies are about the distant future. So tell them that I, the sovereign Lord, am saying there will be no more delay. What I have said will be done. I am the sovereign Lord, have spoken. Right? So God says it's not going to be no more delay. What I say is going to happen. Right? Let's get Luke. Let's go to the New Testament. Let's get Luke real quick. Luke 17 and 20. Luke 17 and 20, right? Luke 17 and 20 says, hold on, get my thing. Yeah, Luke 17 and 20 says, and when he was, put it right here, says, and when he was demanded of the Pharisees, the kingdom of God should come, and he answered them, said, all right, when he was, let me read it again, when he was demanded of the Pharisees, when the kingdom of God shall come, he answered them and said, the kingdom of God comes not with observation. Meaning, you're not going to just be sitting one day and just not doing nothing, then all of a sudden, you in the kingdom of heaven. It doesn't work like that. It says the kingdom of God will not come with observation, meaning you're not going to be sitting around waiting for it, because that's what people think. Like I went into yesterday about how people think when you die, you go to heaven and all that stuff. No, you're not waiting for the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom. God is waiting on us. Yahweh Shai is waiting on us to do something. Just keep reading. Neither should they say, "Lo there," or "Lo or lo there." Behold, the kingdom of God is within you. Right. So that's why you're not going to see that. You're not going to observe the kingdom with observation. The kingdom of God is within you. We have to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments of God and keep the faith so we can manifest His kingdom. Right. That's how we do it. It says, so that's how we do it. So it says, the kingdom, behold, the kingdom of God is within you, right? And that's what we gotta understand. Let's get Corinthians real quick. We gotta understand that. So we're not gonna, but like I said, you'll go to church, they'll teach you that you have to die and all that stuff to receive any type of blessing. No, it's a lot of us is living in that time, and it's a real chance, depending on our age, that we're actually going to see the coming of Yahweh Shai. We're in those days right now, right? We're in those days right now that we're actually going to see the coming of Yahweh Shai. And hold on real quick. All right, oh man. We're actually going to see those days, right? So, and that's what we got to understand. It's no longer. We can look at the prophecies concerning the end of the end times, and we see all those things is happening. Like we read in Ezekiel, where it says that the Israelites think that your visions and prophecies are about the distant future. So that's what a lot of our people think, that that's so far off. But no, right? Let's get First Corinthians, boom, boom, boom. What I want, First Corinthians 4:20. It says, "For the kingdom of God is not in the world, in the word, but in power." Right? Uh, what will ye? I come to unto you with a rod, or in love, in the spirit, of meekness. Right? So that's what it says. It says the kingdom of God is not in the word of power. Hold on real quick. Slovakia. So yeah, that's why it says too that the kingdom of God is in us. Because, right, like it says, for the kingdom of God is not in word, meaning you can't you know, just say things. You have to do things. We have to uh, manifest this kingdom through our deeds and our actions. You know what I'm saying? By us coming back and loving each other and not trying to, kill and steal from each other. You know what I'm saying? Keeping the laws of God. You know, how we manifest this kingdom, because that's only going to hasten these last days. Because God said He's going to protect us in these last days. I know some of y'all thinking with the World War III and food shortage and all this stuff, the mark of the beast, all this crazy stuff that's about to happen. But God says, "My servants will eat, but they're going to be hungry. My servants shall drink, but they're going to be thirsty." So that's why it's important to keep these laws. That's why we want to make sure we're on the right path, so when stuff like that happens, we can be protected in those days, right? So let's get Acts uh, let's get Acts 3:20 real quick. Acts 3:20 says, Acts 3:20 says, "And He shall send Jesus, which is before was preached unto you." Right? It says, "He shall send Yahweh Shai, which was before preached unto you, whom the heavens must receive until the time of restitution." So right now, Yahweh Shai is sitting at the right hand of the Father. And He's sitting in there until it's time for restitution, meaning it's time for the big payback, like James Brown said. So He's waiting He's just waiting for us to get it together. So we're not waiting on Jesus to come back. He's waiting on us to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments. So he can do what he said he's going to do, judge this world for everything that they have done to us, right? And so that's what people don't understand, that it is all about us. It's always been all about us. And we can prove those things, right? So it says, he shall send Yahushua Mashiach, which before was preached unto you, whom the heaven must receive until the time of restitution of all things, which God has spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began. So everything that his prophets wrote about has to happen. And that's where we're not getting. We think, that's why it's crazy to me that people will pick up this book and start reading it from the middle and think they know what's going on. And they just, disregard the Old Testament, like the Old Testament has nothing to do with anything. You're not going to understand what's being told to you in the so-called New Testament, even though truthfully there's no such thing as Old Testament and New Testament. That's just how, you know, it was all put together. You know, when they decided to put all these scrolls and manuscripts in one book, they split it up by saying Old Testament, New Testament. But, or even with the chapters and verses, the scrolls, when you look at the ancient manuscripts, it's just this written down. It's not anything that says, okay, chapter 1, verse 2. It doesn't say that in the original manuscript. But the people that decided to allegate all these different scrolls and manuscripts, they put it in chapters and verses. And then they labeled it Old Testament, New Testament, right? So it says, but whom the heaven must receive until the time of restitution of all things which God has spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began, right? So since the world began. Then it says, for Moses surely said unto the fathers, the prophets shall the Lord our God raise up unto you of your brethren. So like I said, we see it's still talking about us, because if something is your fathers, like if I say our fathers, let's talk about my father, grandfather. That's ancestry here. So this is New Testament. So we see that this is all about us, our ancestry. So it says, for Moses truly said unto the fathers, a prophet uh, shall the Lord your God raise up unto you your brethren, uh, like unto me, whom shall ye hear in all things whatsoever he shall say unto you. So what is that talking about? That's talking about Deuteronomy 18 and 18, where Moses said that. And who did he say that to? He said that to the Israelites, right? And that's what people is not taking into consideration here, right? Just want to highlight this real quick. That's what people not taking into consideration, because we don't read the Old Testament. We just think that when you read the New Testament, like, you think you got it all. That's crazy. Nobody reads a book from the middle and think they understand the story. Nobody will start a movie from the middle and watch the whole movie from the middle. Nobody does that. But for whatever reason, we want to grab the Bible and just pick it up from the middle of the book and think we know what's happening. That's crazy. Then it says, and it shall come to pass that every soul which will not hear the prophet shall be destroyed from among the people. Yeah, all of the prophets from Samuel and those that follow after, as many as have spoken likewise foretold of these days, right? And that's the days we live in. And they all talked about these days that we are currently living in right now, that we can visually see if we have the eyes to see, right? But a lot of us is just blinded by this this worldly stuff, that we can't really see what's really going on, right? Let's go to Let's go to what I want. Let's go to Matthew real quick. Matthew 24. Matthew 24 and 13, right? So it says, but he shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved, right? So that's what we got to understand. We have to endure to the end, right? And the same shall be saved. Let's start up a little bit. Let's see, where up a little bit. Let's start up this. Let's start up at 6. Matter of fact. Let's go to 6. Yeah, I want 6. So it says, for many, let's start at 5. For many come in my name saying, I am Christ, and shall uh, and shall deceive many. And it's a lot of people going around claiming that they Jesus. It's this guy named Tyrone that's in Mississippi calling himself Jesus. It's this other guy named Yaju. I think he's from Compton, and he's calling himself Jesus. There's a lot of people that's going around claiming to be Jesus. Then on the flip side, on deeper than that, you have a lot of these churches that set up claiming that they're coming in the name of Christ, but they're teaching you falsehood. They're not teaching you the real word of God. That's why a lot of our people are not prepared to what's going on. That's why if you ask somebody that just left out of the church building, what did you learn? They gonna be like, I don't know, but I do like that song they were singing. They're gonna talk about how the pastor was dressed. They're gonna talk about how everybody else, what type of skirt this other lady had on, how her hat looked. But they're not gonna be able to tell you what the pastor was teaching because he's not teaching you a goddamn thing. That's why you're not gonna be able to know it. He's just telling you some stuff to make you feel good. That's why you might have a feel of euphoria when you leave out of there. You might feel great when you leave out of church, but you're not learning anything. You cannot. You're not learning anything. That's why a lot of us don't remember what we learned. What we done spend an hour or so in church, almost 2 hours or so in church, and didn't learn not that thing. People can't really tell you. If they do tell you, they're not gonna be able to finish the sentence. Like, well, he was talking about this, and I can't remember what else he said. But you remember your favorite song that they sung. You remember who caught the Holy Ghost. You remember all that crazy stuff. But you don't remember what you're being taught because you're not learning anything. So it says, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Like we're hearing right now. We're hearing about wars with Ukraine and Russia and rumors of war, like China and Taiwan, and the potential the UN and Russia getting into it. It says, see that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So he said, this is when you start seeing that stuff, just know that we right there. The end is not the end yet, because a lot of other stuff got to happen, but we're right there. It says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. So you're going to have nations of people fighting against nations of people. That's talking about race wars. That's talking about good old-fashioned race wars. So not only are you going to have race wars, you're going to have kingdoms against kingdoms. So you're going to have race wars and regular wars congruent together, going together, running continually. And there shall be famines, because like we read about how Ukraine is saying that Russia is weaponizing food and stuff and using energy, as the energy powers as weapons by cutting off certain supplies. We should have famine. Where I'm at, famine and pesticides, and the earthquakes in diverse places. We've been seeing earthquakes in diverse places. The stuff that happened in Turkey, the stuff that happened in what's the other place? In Libya, right? Liberia or Libya, one of the two. Stuff that happens over there, we see earthquakes happening, and tens and tens of thousands of people getting injured and hurt, right, and killed, should I say? So we see these things happening, right? And I know some people say, well, that always happened, but they're happening more frequently now. Like it says, they're gonna keep coming as we're waking up to the truth and understanding the truth. God is passing judgment on this earth. So technically, it's all our fault because we're waking up and understanding who we are, and God is ready to judge this place because He knows that we're coming back to it and we're getting what's really happening. So now God is ready to judge this place, and that's what's going on because it's all about us, right? And it says, earthquakes in diverse places. These are the beginning of sorrow. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted. So then now we're going to get in. So now we're going to be going because when famine really hits America, they start shutting down things like how they did when a couple of years ago when I C-19 was happening, and a lot of places were shut down and all that stuff. But this time it's going to be military occupied, martial law, and internment camps that they're going to be trying to send people off to because they're going to try to implement what we call the mark of the beast, give you the RFID chip, you know, the little Neuralink stuff going on. And a lot of us is going to take it, but then a lot of us ain't going to take it, and we're going to fight against it. So that's going to cause these civil wars and nation against nation uh, and all that stuff, right? Because we're going to fight. And like I said, so it's going to be and and they shall deliver you up to affliction and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And that's why us Israelites is they trying to give us a bad name, like we just some crazy Negroes out here just yelling at people on the corner because they're trying to. This is fulfilling prophecy. So that's why a real Israelite doesn't get upset when people disagree with us or think that we crazy and think that we just these mean people because it says, and they shall deliver you up to be afflicted, and they shall kill you, and they shall, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Why are we going to be hated? Because we're telling the truth out here. We're letting you know, thus said the Lord, that God is destroying this place. And people get tired of hearing what we have to say because people don't like hearing the truth. The truth is not comfortable to a lot of people. That's why people want to silence the truth. And then it's going to come upon a time where people is going to take people like us and try to deliver us up to the government and say, hey, there's an Israelite person right there. Go get them, lock them up. I know where they stay at. You know, a lot of times it's going to be your own family that does it, right? So it says, and then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. And that's what we see. We see a lot of hatred amongst our people. A lot of our people getting offended over the littlest thing and want to, and, and, and want to kill each other over stuff, right? Over the smallest stuff. You can lose your life over a parking space. You can lose your life just because you driving in your car and you just so happen to glance over at the next car and that person in that car didn't like how you looked at them, so then they end up shooting up your car on the expressway or wherever the case may be. So it says, so that's where it says, but he that endures unto the end, but he that endures unto the end, the same shall be saved. So that's when we're going to be saved. Because a lot of these people go to church and say, well, I'm saved. But Christ just told you how you're going to be saved. You have to, but he that endures to the end, the same shall be saved. So if we make it through all of that, then we're going to be saved, right? But we have to make it through this hardship that's coming, because it's about to get real rough. We're going to have to be on the move, especially if you're not down with the program, you're going to have to get up out of here because you're not going to be wanted around. You're going to be a wanted man and woman, it's going to be crazy out here. Uh, let's get boom boom boom. We gotta understand it's happening, right? Let's go to Revelation 1 real quick. Revelation 1 and 1. It says, the revelation of Yahweh Shah Mashiach, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must surely come to pass, and he sent a a, he sent and signified it by his angel unto the servant John. So these are things that must come to pass. It says things which shortly come to pass, meaning these things is going to happen. So, and these are things that must come to pass, right? That's what we got to understand. Let's get Haggai real quick. Let's get our dear brother Haggai. So these things must come to pass, you know, because we think this stuff is not going to happen. But like I said, we see these things happening on a daily basis. If you watch the news and you understand Bible prophecy, you can see these things happening. So just get Haggai 2 and 6, right? 2 and 6, it says, uh, thus said the Lord of hosts, yet once a little while, and I will shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and the dry land. Says, so let's read it one more time. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, yet once it's a little while, and I will shake the heavens and the earth and the sea. So God is going to shake this place up, right? This place is about to get shaken. He's going to shake this whole place down, you know. Then it says, in the dry land, and I will shake all the nations, and the desire of the nations shall come, and I will fill this house with glory, said Yahweh of hosts. And the silver is mine, and the gold is mine, said the Lord of hosts. So God is going to get ready to shake this whole, just like how Debo used to hit the block and pat your pockets down. God is about to pat the pockets of all these nations and take all their wealth from them and put it into his temple. And who is his temple? The people of God. The Black, Hispanic, and Native American people is the temple of God. It says, the glory of this latter house shall be greater than the former, said Yahweh of hosts. And in this place will I give thee peace, said the Lord of hosts. Right? Let's get it in the GNT, in case we don't understand. Let's see how it reads. So we got to understand what's happening here, right here. Haggai 2 and 6 in the GNT. Before long I will shake the heavens and earth and land and sea. I will overthrow all nations, and their treasure will be brought here, and the temple will be filled with wealth. So God is going to take all. So a lot of people will say, well, how are we going to survive in those days? What's going to happen? Because then we say earlier that the Bible says that my servants will eat and my servants will drink while everybody else is being hungry and thirsty. So, and how he's going to do it? He says, I will overthrow all nations, and their treasures will be brought to here, and the temple will be filled with wealth. All the silver and gold of the world is mine. The new temple will be more splendid than the old one, and there I will give my people prosperity and peace. The Lord Almighty has spoken. So that's what's going to be. That's our future in this. If we keep the commandments and not follow in the ways of America, that's our future in this. If we keep the faith in the Mashiach Yahushua, who the world mistakenly called Jesus, uh, that's our future in this. A lot of us get worried on when we talk about World War III and famine and death and destruction, but they don't understand that all of that is happening for us. God loves us so much, he's going to kill a third of the world for our sake. 2 billion and so people for what they did to us, right? That's how we got to understand it, right? we are the children of God. A lot of people will say, now knowing that we are the children of God, a lot of us as parents, a lot of people will say for their child is nothing that they won't do. You know what I'm saying? Like that Joel Santana song, I got a little boy to look after. I got a little boy to look after. If I died, my child would be a bastard. Then that verse he said, there's nothing I won't do for you. I will bury a whole block for you. Right? That's how God feels. Nothing he won't do for us. He will bury a whole block for us. So when you see judgment in the world, when you see different earthquakes and people fighting against each other, God is taking them out slowly but surely. He's removing them out of our way so we can be that top hegemony on this planet like he promised. Right? But we don't see it like that because we've been brainwashed to think that, you know, that God is love everybody when the Bible clearly tells you that he's only the God of the Israelites. And we can read that in Joel chapter 2:27, uh, Psalms 147 and 20. We can see those things, right? Uh, so we got to understand that. So let's read it. Let's get So let's read it again. It says, before long, I will shake the heavens. I will shake the heavens and earth and land and sea. I will overthrow all nations, and their treasures will be uh, brought here, and the temple will be filled with wealth. All the silver and gold of the world is mine. The new temple will be more splendid than the old one. And if you're familiar with Solomon's temple, it was decked out. You know what I'm saying? It was very nicely decorated with all types of gold and stuff, right? So it says the temple will be more splendid than the old one, and there I will give my people prosperity and peace. And the Lord Almighty has said it. And who is his people? The Israelites. And who are the Israelites? The Black, Hispanic, and Native American people. At least that's what they call us on this side of the world. On the other side of the world, we're known as different things, right? Different names. So it says, so now this is Isaiah 60:10. And the sons of the strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall be thy nursing, uh, and the kings shall come unto thee. Let me read it right. Hold on. And the sons of the strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor I have mercy on thee. So he's gonna use these rulers, the elites of these nations, to build up our kingdom. They're going to have brick and mortar in their hand, building up our kingdom, fixing our stuff up. Like how we have to slave and work and fix their kingdom up, how we built their kingdom and made them great. They're going to have to do that for us, right? And it says, and therefore the gates shall be open continually, they shall not be shut nor day and night, that the men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles. What is the forces of the Gentiles? It tells you right here. It says, all the silver and gold of the world is mine. The new temple will be more splendid than the old one, and there I will give my people prosperity and peace. What it says over here, Therefore the gates, therefore thy gates shall be open continuously. Why is it open continuously? Because these nations gonna have to give us all everything what they got. Left hand give it up, right hand give it up. Right? Then it says, therefore thy gates shall be open continuously. They shall not be shut nor night, nor shut day nor night, that the man shall bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought. Because their kings are gonna be brought, because they're gonna be in servitude. They're gonna be in shackles and chains, and brought to the land. Just like how when we got to the coast of America, we came off them ships in shackles and in chains, right? Then it says, for the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee, the thee is the Israelites, shall perish. Yeah, those nations should be utterly wasted. So God said, if they don't want to get down with the program, then I'm just going to wipe them off the map then. So either you're going to get down with the program because I chose these people to run everything. And this is who you have to listen to. And if you don't want to do what they say do, I'm going to wipe you off the map. It says, for that nation and kingdom that would not serve thee shall perish. Yeah, those nations should be utterly wasted. That's what God said. But church is not telling you that that is what's going on. That's the program. Church is not saying that, right? Let's get let's get let's get Jeremiah 49. Let's start at Jeremiah 49 and 17 real quick. So we gotta understand like why these nations that's coming together and what they're doing to this place. It says Jeremiah 49 and 19. Also Edom shall be a desolation. Every one that goes by shall be astonished and hiss at the plagues thereof. Right? So when it's talking about Edom, it's talking about America because America descends from Edom. Right? There are the Edomites, along with their other European counterparts. They're Edomites, right? And it says Edom shall be desolate. Every one that goes by shall be astonished and shall hiss at all of the plagues thereof, right? Because it's talking about Babylon, right? Because America is Babylon. And they're going to hiss at this place. They're going to be like, dang, America was a great country. It's a shame what happened to them. How did they fall like that? How did they allow themselves to be toppled like that? Because everybody thinks America is this great country. But when Yahweh destroyed this place, then they're going to be like, wow, they was taken down. Wow, I didn't see that coming. So let's jump to chapter 50. Because the wrath of the Lord should not be inhabited. Wait, because of the wrath of the Lord, it shall not be inhabited. So that's what happened in America when these nuclear bombs hit this place. This place is not going to be inhabited no more because number one, it's going to have nuclear fallout and radiation all over this place. Then on top of that, it's going to be burning with fire. It's going to be everlasting fire, like it tells you in Book of Revelation, that this is the lake of fire. Because America has a lot of underground volcanoes. They got some of the largest underground volcanoes, like Yellowstone, for example. So when these bombs start hitting and it start causing seismic activity, which causes earthquakes, that lava that's cooking underneath America, a great part of America, is going to explode along with these bombs. Because Russia has their bomb is 50 times stronger than the bomb they use on Japan, right? 50 megatons, I think. I think it's 50 megatons or kilotons. I don't know what's bigger when it comes to bombs, kilotons or megatons, but I know it's 50. And when they start dropping that on America, then along with other countries that have nukes also, this place is going to be a lake of fire. That's what the Bible talks about, right? And it says, because of the wrath of Yahweh, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolated. Every one that goes by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at it, at all her plagues. So they're going to be looking at this place like, dang, America, too bad. Only if you were just righteous and did the right thing, you'd probably still be here. Only if you did not mess with Russia and thought that you was just the top sheriff. Dang, that's how people are gonna be looking at this place, right? When it's all said and done. Let's get let's keep going. Matter of fact, it says, but put yourselves in array against Babylon around about. So God is telling these nations to surround Babylon. And that's what's going to happen. They're going to surround Babylon with their nuclear capabilities, with their bombs. It says, uh, put yourself array against Babylon. Ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows. These arrows is talking about their nuclear bombs, right? And just so happened a nuclear warhead is look just like a arrow spearhead. And this is the prophet Jeremiah. They didn't have missiles back then, so only thing that Jeremiah can liken when he's seeing his vision, only thing that Jeremiah can liken these nuclear bombs to is arrows, because that's what he can compare it to in his day, because they had arrows. So Russia, China, Korea, they're going to be shooting their arrows, their bombs from one side of the earth to the next. And just keep reading. It says, put yourself in array against Babylon around about. All ye that bend the bow. So all of y'all that got these nuclear capabilities, shoot at her. Spare no arrows. For she have sinned against the Lord. That's why God is doing it. That's why God is raising these nations up to take down America. Because she have sinned against the Lord. Shout against her round about. She has given her hand. Her foundations are fallen. Her walls are thrown down. Meaning the government is over with. You know, the protection for the people is over with. Because America already demonstrated that they're not capable of stopping Russian missile capability. Russia have hypersonic missiles that can fly undetected and hit anywhere they want in America. That's why they was so, that's why they so worried about the whole Venezuela thing, and Putin got those hypersonic planes that can fly twice as fast as the speed of sound that they got in Venezuela right now. Right, so Russia is about that. They're doing what they're supposed to do because God is putting that spirit on them, right? It says, where am I? Hold on. You want to read the 15. So then it says, shout against her around about. She has given her hand, her foundations are fallen, her walls are thrown down, for it is the vengeance of the Lord. Take vengeance upon her, as she have done unto her. Right? As she have done, do unto her. Right? So that's how God said he's getting down on these people. He's taking vengeance on America because America has did so much hell on the earth, and nobody has been able to stop what they've been trying to do. But God is going to stop what they've been trying to do by using people like Russia and their allies, right? I just want to see how those passages read in the G&T real quick. Then we can move on. For that 39 and 13, boom, boom, boom. Says, all right, here we go. I myself have sworn that the city of Basra will become a horrifying sight in the desert, in a desert. Because that's what's gonna happen. You read about that in I think that's Isaiah. It talks about how this became or the Revelation. They speak about how this place became a place for basically for desert animals to live. And it says, and like no people can live here, but only desert animals because of the radiation is high and the whole heat, everything. So it says, site in a desert. The people will make fun of it and use his name as a curse. All the nearby villages will be in ruins forever. I, Yahweh, have spoken it. I said, Edom, I have received a message from the Lord. He has sent a messenger to tell the nations to assemble their armies to get ready to attack you. So God put a spirit on these nations, that messengers, that those angels that he used to influence nations, and he put it on these other nations. It says to get ready to attack you. The Lord is going to make you weak, and no one will respect you. And that's what's happening. People is losing respect for America now, right? That's how it's going down. People is losing respect for America, right? Let's get one next. Let's go to Joel, right? Because people, like I said, people is losing respect, and they ready for it though now. They ain't backing down to America. Because America still think this is the 70s and the 80s. When everybody was afraid of it, but it's not. Let's get Joel 3:9. It says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war." Like we just read, that God has sent a messenger to these nations to prepare war to destroy America. It says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them all come up. Beat your plowshares into swords," meaning take your little manufacturing factories that you usually, probably make whatever, cars or whatever you produce in computers, scrap all that. Flip it over. We're going to start making weapons in these factories now because we need to produce weapons because we're about to go to war. So it says, "Beat your plowshares into swords, your prong hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come ye, all ye heathens." So it's talking about the other nations. It says, "Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathens, and gather yourselves together around about hither, that cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathens be let the heathens be awakened and come and up to the valley of Jehoshaphat." Okay, well, but yeah, we can stop right there. But basically, God is getting all these nations ready to fight, against America. He's telling them, hey, transfer all your capabilities of manufacturing goods, start manufacturing weapons, get everything together because it's wartime, right? Let's get Luke. Let's go back to the New Testament. Let's get Luke in 14. Luke 14 and 31. So it says, Luke 13:41. "Or what king's going to war against another king, sitteth not down first and consult whether he's able with 10,000 to meet him that come against him with 20,000." So like like when people go to war, they're not just like Russia. A lot of, like I was telling a friend of mine a couple of years ago when all this first happened. He thought that this whole thing just gonna be over with. Russia is not as strong as we thought, but look where we at now. America and their allies are scrambling to try to figure out what to do. Russia is getting stronger and stronger each year that this thing goes on. So, and I told him the same verse right here. I paraphrased it. I'm like, nobody goes to war without counting the cost. They don't just decide to go to war one day. Like I said, Putin didn't just wake up one day. Sheisty did not wake up one day and say, I'm choosing violence. No, he thought about it because America has been trying to intimidate and poke at him for years. And then he just got tired. This was the final straw. The fact that right in front of him, next door is Ukraine, and America is trying to put weapons in and have Ukraine come over on their side. And Putin's like, nah, y'all already got me surrounded. I'm not taking this no more. Now I'm about to go on the offense. since I see what y'all trying to do, y'all trying to wait till y'all get me all surrounded on every side, then y'all gonna attack me. Nah, I'm about to make the first move. So it says, or what king go to war against another king and sit not down first? So meaning you have to Putin and anybody that goes to war, you have to think about what the risk is. What's the pros and what's the cons, right? And like I was telling my friend, I'm like, you don't think Putin thought about all of this? Because you don't think that's why he has China that got his back. That's why he got Iran that got his back. That's why he got the South African and the other East African countries and the Northern African countries and the South American countries and Korea got his back. So he thought about all these things. He made sure all of the ducks was in a row because he know if he make his move towards America and NATO, they're gonna sanction the shit out of his ass. But as we can see, the sanctioning is not working because he's still controlling the food. They trying to starve him out, but in the course of them trying to starve Russia out, we are starving. We're reaping the consequences of that. Our gas prices are going up. Our food prices are going up. Our energy prices are going up. Putin is okay over there because he has China and those other allied nations that he's allied with. That's cushioning him. So he's cool. He's got wiggle room to move around. So that's what I was trying to explain to my friend a couple of years ago about it when this thing first started. And hopefully, he understands what I'm saying now. And so it says, what king goes to going to make war against another king, sit not down first and consult whether he's able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000. So you plan these things out. You do things. You know what I'm saying? And you make sure everything is in order before you go to war. Like we keep referencing that Memphis Bleak song. I got my mind right, money right, ready for war. Right? That's what's happening here. This is what we're witnessing. So let's go back to Jeremiah. Let's go to Jeremiah 50 and 9. So Jeremiah 50 and 9 says, For lo, I will raise and cause to come. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon a assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves array against her. From hence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as a mighty man, as a mighty expert. So if somebody's a bow and arrow expert, they gonna hit the bullseye every time. So God is saying, Putin, Korea, China, Iran, and India, and any other country they got with them that got nuclear capability, their arrows is not going to miss. America missile defense is inadequate to stop what's about to hit them. This whole barrage of weapons that's about to fly and hit this place. That's why people like us, we need to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments and keep the faith so we can get up out of here. So we can be protected from all of that madness that happens, right? That's why all God is asking for us to do is keep the commandments. That when you go to church, they tell you that the laws of God is done away with. But God is asking you to keep the commandments. And that's the only thing, that's what's going to save us. The commandments and keeping the faith in Yahweh Shai, who the world mistakenly called Jesus, right? That's what's going to save us. So it says, For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon a assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves array against her. From hence shall she be taken. Their arrows shall be as a mighty expert, expert man, boom, 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 expert man. None shall return in vain. Okay, that's how it reads. So basically saying these arrows are not duds. These missiles are not duds. They're not going to fall short of their target. They're going to hit, and when they put those the coordinates in the computer to, all right, this missile going to go here, they're going to go there. They're not going to stop short. That's what he said. He said, uh, their arrows shall be as a mighty expert expert man. So, like I said, when you got somebody you seen those bow and arrow competitions, some people was cold with it. You know what I'm saying? Some people, they can hit an arrow in the bullseye, then shoot another arrow right behind it and split that arrow. So that's the accuracy of these missiles that Putin and France got, that sheisty and France got, right? And it says, and none shall return vain, meaning these arrows is not going to miss their mark, right? That's what we got to understand what's going on here. And Pastor is not reading these things because Pastor don't understand prophecy because he's too busy trying to tell you some feel-good story so you can feel good enough to go in your pocket and give him some money while he go off to his nice little house and his perfect little family and you back in the hood, with all the bull stuff, right? Let's get Jeremiah 51 and 49. Jeremiah 51 and 49. So it says, Babylon has caused the slaying of Israel to fall. So what if America, because like I said, you got to understand, America is Babylon. Because I was talking to somebody a few days ago, and they don't believe that America is Babylon. But like I said many times before, when you know the history of the land of Babylon, when Nebuchadnezzar was ruling, Babylon never been destroyed. They got taken over by the Persians and Medes, but they were never destroyed. Because when the Persians and Medes destroyed other city-states within Babylon, but Babylon itself never been destroyed. When Darius, came knocking on the door of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar said, "You want it? Here you go. You can take it. I'm done. Take it. You can have it." So he Darius and them, they took over Babylon without a fight. So they didn't have to burn and destroy anything. Well, you know the history. And then this is talking about utter destruction of Babylon that is not going to be inhabited no more. People are living in Iran today. People are living in Iraq today. Okay, those are nations right now. So it have not been utterly destroyed to the point where people can't live there anymore. That's what the Bible is saying is going to happen to Babylon. That's why they call America the daughter of Babylon. They also call it Babylon. They call it, they call it the great whore also, right? So you got to understand. So a lot of people don't get understand these prophecies because they too, what they call, too literal with things. And they don't understand the context. Like when you're reading in Jeremiah, they don't understand the context change from Jeremiah speaking about the actual Babylon, then the context changed to where he's speaking about the future Babylon, which is the daughter of Babylon, which would be America, right? So it says Babylon has caused the slain of Israel to fall. So at Babylon shall fall. So Babylon shall fall, the slain of the earth, right? So that's what's going to happen. Babylon was going to fall. Let's get that in the G&T. We're going to get both of these in the G&T real quick. Let's get start up. Let's go to 50 and 9 real quick. It says, I am Jeremiah 50 and 9 in the G&T. I am going to stir up a group of strong nations in the north and make them attack Babylon. They will line up in battle against the country and conquer it. They are skillful hunters, shooting arrows that never miss the mark. right? So, like I said, we read earlier, they're not going to miss their mark. They're going to these missiles will hit, right? Now let's get 51 in the GNT, right? 51 in the GNT, Jeremiah 51 and 49 in the GNT says, Babylon caused the death of people all over the world. And what country has done this? We know that America has went around the world robbing, killing, and stealing all over the world, right? It says Babylon have caused the death of people all over the world, and now Babylon will fall because it caused death of so many Israelites. So now God is saying, we're gonna you gotta pay because you don't cause the death of so many Israelites, right? That's why this place is getting judged because it did what it did to the Israelites. And people think it doesn't matter if you're an Israelite, but obviously we read this book and we see it matters to God because those are His children. So if somebody like your child matters to you, do they not? So you don't want your child to be mistreated. Like if your child come home from school and tell you that the teacher is mistreating them, you're gonna be up at that school to figure out what the hell going on. So God says Babylon has caused the death of many people all over the world, and now Babylon will fall because it caused the death of so many Israelites. I, the Lord, have spoken it. So this is what we got to look forward to. Well, not we, but them, but for our benefit, right? Let's get let's go to Revelation 11 real quick. Let's go to Revelation 11, and we're gonna start at 14. Because this is we talking about this World War III thing, man, right? So it says the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe come quickly. Just talking about World War III, because the World War II already passed. World War II it happens. So John is seeing that World War II happened. Then shortly after World War II, World War III is about to jump off. Right after, right? So it says the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe comes quickly. The seven angels sound. So it's talking about. So now we jump into after World War III. It says now this is verse 15. The seventh angel sound, and there were a great voice in heaven saying, "The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord Yahweh and His Son. I mean, and His Mashiach Christ, Yahweh, and He shall reign forever and ever." So when this whole smoke clears, everything is going to be given to our Mashiach Yahweh, who the world mistakenly called Jesus. Right? That's what's going to happen here. So let's get and that's what we don't, So that's what's going to be the end result of this whole thing, right? You know, and it's all for our sake. You know what I'm saying? That's what we don't understand. So we don't have to be terrified and upset when we see certain things on the news. Just know that we have a God that fights for us. And He is angry with the world for what they have done. Because what it says here, Babylon has caused the death of people all over the world. And we know America done did that. And now Babylon will fall because it caused the death of so many Israelites. What happened to us when we got brought over here in the slave trade? How many, like just 2 million of us died just coming over on this side of the world. Then it says, then let alone all of us that died throughout the whole history of slavery, then all the lynchings and stuff that we have to go through, then so many unarmed black people getting killed by the police. It says, Babylon Babylon had caused the death of so many Israelites, as so many Israelites, I, the Lord, have spoken it. So that's why all these things is happening. That's why when we see the news, certain things happen, and it's all because God is angry with this place, right? Let's get Second Ezra 15 real quick, right? Second Ezra 15 and 15. So we're gonna so we can understand. Like I said, it's gonna get worse. You know what I'm saying? And that's why we have to keep the faith and keep the commandments so we can be able to navigate and make it through this stuff that's about to happen. right? Because it's gonna get crazy. You're gonna see some things that you never saw before. You might have to do some things that you never have done before, right? And it says this, Second Esdras 15:15. But of course, we pray that we can have a level of protection when the whole world is going crazy, falling apart. We hope that we can have that stability. That's the whole goal of this. For the sword and their destruction draw nigh, and one people should stand up and fight against another people. So we see this civil unrest, people fighting against each other, and also known as race wars. Fight against another, and the sword in their hand, for there shall be sedition among men. Meaning, it's gonna be people gonna be doing some sick, crazy stuff to each other in this time, right? There's gonna be some crazy stuff. So it says, sedition. There shall be sedition among men and invading one another. So people are gonna be breaking into your houses because they're gonna be hungry. They're not gonna have food to feed their family, so they're gonna be breaking into your houses to get whatever they want to get. So it says, invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. So we're not gonna follow the law anymore. You're not gonna be able to call 911 and say, "Hey, some people trying to get in my house." 911 is gonna have a busy signal in that day. All right. This is why we need the protection of the Most High God. Right. It says, "For the sword and their destruction draw nigh, and one people should stand up and fight against another, and the sword in their hand, for there shall be sedition among men, invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes." We're not going to listen to our leaders anymore. We're going to be like, damn that. I'm about to go out there and get it. I'm tired of thinking y'all going to have a solution. Y'all thought January 6th was something. Imagine if the whole country is on that. You thought that when they rushed the Capitol, imagine if the whole country is on that, but they're more violent, with it. That's how it's going to be. It says, in the course of their actions shall stand in their power, meaning we're going to do whatever we think is right. If I think it's right to go to my neighbor's house and kill him and take whatever he got in his cabinet to bring back to my family, I'm going to do that. That's what it says. It says that, where am I? It says, the course of their actions shall stand in their power, meaning whatever we think that we need to do in that day and age, we're going to have to do it. But like I said, for us, we're praying for that protection so we won't have to go through these things that are going to happen in this world when everything really hit the fan, right? So it says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. So now we have martial law. You're going to want to go to the next city over, but you're going to have a armed troop standing right there like, nigga, what you doing over here? Let me see your pass. Like, let me see what you coming over here for. So it says, a man should desire to go into a city and shall not be able. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, and the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. There's going to be a lot of that going on. People is going to be breaking into your houses. There's going to be trouble on every corner. There's going to be straight up anarchy, right? And I'm led to believe it's not going to be our own soldiers in the streets. It's going to be UN soldiers, police and stuff. Because a couple years ago, America tried to get the American soldiers to sign off on, technically martial law, policing the citizens. But the soldiers were like, no, we ain't with that. You know what I'm saying? We fight for the people. We don't fight against the people. So I believe when we read in this, it's going to be the UN soldiers that's over here that's policing everything, right? So it says, where am I? It says, a man should desire to go into the city and shall not be able. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity on his neighbor, but shall destroy their house with the sword. So that's like we said. So you're not gonna look at, you go outside, you see your neighbor, hey, how you doing? But in that day, you're gonna be saying, well, hold on, I wonder what he got in his house. I know they got something over there. Let me. I'm running up over there because I'm hungry. We have nothing, and I know they got something. So just go over there and get it. So people gonna be on that in that day. That's why we have to have the protection of the Most High God before we won't have to go through that stuff. So you won't have to do something that you never thought you would have to do before, meaning unalive somebody, right? By protecting yourself. But it's a real chance that you might have to unalive somebody just to protect your family. And that's what we're going to see. Or you might see this violence all over, and then that stuff that you wouldn't even thought you would see with your own eyes. And you're going to have to just go like that. You know what I'm saying? Because you're like, well, I don't want that to happen. I'm just going to mind my business because I'm trying to survive. Right? That's what we coming to. It says a man should have no pity upon his neighbor, but should destroy their house with the sword and spoil their goods. Meaning you're gonna, break, rob people, for just to eat, for a loaf of bread, you know, whatever you might need, whatever necessity you might need. It says, and spoil their goods because a lack of bread and for great tribulation. So that's what we have to look forward to, in this coming future. Because the pastor is not reading these verses. That's in Second Ezra 15, right? And the pastor's not going to read that to us. He's not, because his job is to rock us back to sleep. That's his job, to just take us and rock us back to sleep, sing some songs to us, tell us everything's gonna be all right. But we see with our own eyes when we look into the world, everything is not all right. Everything is getting worse and worse, right? This is moving on. We're gonna jump down to the verse 20. So it says, "Behold, said God, I will call together all the kings of the earth to reverence me." Meaning God is bringing all these nations together. Then when God does what He does to these nations, they're gonna be like, "Damn, it is a God. Wow, like, geez, we thought we was just out here doing things, but wow, it's really a God out here that actually He just really jacked us up like that." So it says, "Behold, said God, I will call together all the kings of the earth to reverence me, which are from the rising sun, from the south, from the east, and Lebanese, to turn themselves one against another." So God is going to make all these nations fight against each other. Like we're seeing right now, we see all these nations picking a side, and they're going to fight against each other. And we call that World War III. That's what we call that. Where, or how I like to say, it's going to be like a Royal Rumble. Like if you're a wrestling fan, the Royal Rumble where everybody jumps in the ring, they fight, and the last person standing is the winner. But just so happened, we're going to be in that Royal Rumble. But we're coming in as the last. Like if you watch like I said, this is for my wrestling fans. If you watch if you watch the Royal Rumble, like whenever how it's all like storyline, of course, right? So then the person that come out number 30, that's usually who they try to make the favor to win. So they put him at number 30 because they want to cheat to make sure that he wins. So we're coming in at number 30 in this Royal Rumble. When all these people is destroying themselves, then we gonna come in at number 30. Then I like to say when we come in at number 30 to fight against big bad mother Russia, because that's what we can read in the prophecy. 2 chapters ahead, we're in chapter 15 of Second Esdras, but when you read chapter 13, it tells you how God is going to use us to destroy them. Then when you read Jeremiah 51 and 20, we can get that if we need to, that we are the battle axes of God. We are His weapons that He used to destroy these nations. So, like I said, we can read all of that, right? So I like to say when we come in at number 30, like I said, for my wrestling fans, this is the analogy I'm using. When we come in at number 30, it's going to switch from being a Royal Rumble to WrestleMania. Because now we're taking on Big Bad Russia. And we're going to destroy them, utterly destroy them. Like it says in the book of Obadiah 1 and 18, right? And in the book of Ezekiel 38, right? In 39, in chapter 39 also. So it says, where I'm at. and turn themselves one against another, and repay the things that they have done to them. So God says all the evil that these people, these nations have done, He's going to repay them back. He's going to have them fight each other. And that's how He's going to get that payback. He's going to have them destroy each other till there's none of them left. Right? That's how God get down. You know, and then it says, like as they do, like as they do yet this day unto my chosen, but we are the chosen, so will I do. So what I so he said, like how they destroyed us because we don't know who we are. We walking around with European names. You know, we following all these different false religions. So we don't know who we are. He said, so like how you destroyed my chosen, so will I do also in recompense, meaning pay them back in their bosoms, meaning God gonna bring it straight to their chest. You know what I'm saying? You know, like people say, man, I'm bringing it straight to your chest, meaning live and direct. You know what I'm saying? I'm bringing it straight to you. I'm not beating around the bush. I'm not about to, sneak attack you from behind. I'm bringing it straight to you. You're gonna know that I'm coming at you about it. I'm coming to see you. It says, and recompense them in their bosoms. Thus said Yahweh power. Thus said the Lord God. So that's what's going on around here. That's what we see in this place. You know, when we understand the prophecies, we see how this all play out for our favor. But we have to keep the faith. Of course, some of us gonna get caught up in the mix. Okay, but we got to, as long as we have to stay on the straight and narrow, keep the faith, follow the commandments, so we can be saved out of this thing. Because like we read in what was it, Luke, that he that endures to the end should be saved. That's when we're going to be saved. Because, the church would tell you, oh, I'm saved, but then they suffer from diabetes. You know what I'm saying? Or they got some type of cancer going on with them. Or, they can, so we're not saved until we make it to the end, like the Bible says. We're not at the end. We're at the beginning of the end. But when we live through all of that stuff, then we can say that we're saved, according to the Bible. Right? Because I know people, like I said, we say these things, but you have to understand, what does it mean to be saved? We're going to get that right real quick. Because I don't want y'all to think I'm just saying stuff, because we've been taught, oh yeah, we're saved. But let's see what the Bible says we're going to be saved from. Right? Because we're not dealing with Christianity here. We're dealing with the Bible. Because the Bible and Christianity has nothing to do with each other. So let's see what the Bible says what saved is. Let's go to Luke real quick. New Testament, right? Let's see, Luke 1 and 68. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel. Not what it says of Israel. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he hath visited and redeemed his people. He has risen up a horn of salvation, right? That's what we are looking for, salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have since the world began, that we should be saved from our enemies and from all the hand that hate us. That is what being saved is, that we should be saved from our enemies and all the hand that hate us, right? To perform the mercy and promise to our fathers, that is possessive word, our father, and to remember his holy covenant. That's what being saved is, from our enemies. So, like it says in Luke, where is it at? Boom, boom, boom. Man, but yeah, like it says in other Luke, that we have to endure to the end to be saved, right? And we just read what being saved is, being saved from our enemies, right? And just get one more before we close out to further prove that. Just go to Isaiah. So we read it in the New Testament, what being saved is. Just see what it also looks like. It says, Isaiah 61 and 1. The spirit of Yahweh power is upon me. The spirit of the Lord God is upon me. Because the Lord have anointed me to preach the good tidings, which is the gospel, unto the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives. Not everybody is held captive on this earth. We are the ones that's held captive on the earth. We are the ones that have been scattered to all these different nations, you know, to work as their workforce in their slave labor. We are the one that's held captive. We are the one that make up 80% of the inmates in prison. We are those people. We are held captive and the opening of the prison to them that are bound. So we are the ones that's filling up their prison houses, right? To proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn. So we are the ones that are mourning. We are the ones that losing loved ones on a day-to-day basis, whether it's through drug addiction, gun violence, the prison system, just black on black crime, whatever type of stuff. We are the ones that's mourning. You know what I'm saying? We are the ones that's, you know, suffering things. You know, we the ones that, you know, have the high rate of depression and all that stuff and mental illness. We are the one that's in mourning. It says to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion. In case that wasn't specific enough for you, because you know you're like, well, everybody mourns, but it tells you right here to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion. And what is Zion? The Israelites, because that is another way of saying Israel. And to give to them the beauty for ashes, meaning instead of us crying and always sad, he's going to give us beauty for ashes and the oil of joy for mourning. So he's going to replace our mourning with joy. Who needs that more than us? We do. The people that run this world, they don't need salvation because they run everything. What do they need God for? If they control everything, they decide who do this and who don't do that, right? So we have to know how this thing works. We got to know who he's God of, and he's only the God of the Israelites. Pursuant to Joel chapter 2, verse 22, uh, Deuteronomy 1 and 1, uh, the book of Psalms 147 and 20, and many other places. Joel 3, Amos 3 and 1. A lot of places we can keep going. We just read, and also Luke 68 tells you that he's our God and is only for us. So how many? I mean, it's just that we've been caught up in this brainwash that they call Christianity, that has nothing to do with the Bible, and we believe it instead of actually reading the book for ourselves to see what it says. And I too, when I first started understanding the truth of the Bible, it took me a half a second to really say, well, what about this or what about that? But we have to take the Bible. We can't pick and choose what part of the Bible we want, right? So it says, to appoint to them that mourn in Zion, to give them beauty for ashes and oil for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called the trees of righteousness, the planting of Yahweh, that he might be glorified, right? It says, and they shall build in old place in waste in old waste, and they shall rise up the former desolation. So when we get back to our homeland, it's going to be built up again. Then it says, and they shall build in old waste, and they shall raise up the former desolations, and they shall repair the waste cities, the desolations of many generations. And the strangers, which is people outside of Israel, and the strangers shall stand and feed your flocks. Just like how we was on a plantation farming and sharecropping for them, it says the stranger shall stand and feed your flocks, and the son of the alien, meaning people outside of Israel, the son of the alien shall be your plowman meaning your sharecropper, and your vine dresser, meaning that they're picking your cotton, they're picking your fruits, making sure they ripe and all that stuff. And but ye shall be named the priest of the Lord. But we're going to be called the priest of the Lord. So we don't have to no longer punch in the clock and go work 40, 80 hours a week and barely get to see our family. They're going to be doing that. We're going to have to sit, we're just going to be sitting back on the porch with a fan, fanning ourselves, drinking our iced tea, right? So it says, but ye shall be named the priests of the Lord, and man shall call you the ministers of our God. And ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, just like they're eating our riches, like we pour our life into their work system. There's this whole thing, and they take everything. They take before you get the check, they already taking money out, right? So they're taking our riches, right, and then getting rich off of it. You know, so you work 40, 60, 80 hours a week. You don't see every dime of those 40, 80 hours because you have to pay taxes to them. Then they have to take out for this, they have to take out for that, and all that stuff. But it says, and ye shall be named the priest of the Lord. Men shall call you the minister of our God, and ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles. Just like they're eating our riches. They're stealing from us. They're taking our talent. The music industry steals our talent. They have all these, rappers, whatever, that they use for entertainment, but the record companies is making all the money. Like we all saw that TLC documentary or that TLC movie on Lifetime, I think, and they was pushing a Ford what is that, a bullshit ass car. I forgot exactly. For them to be a mega stars that they was pushing a Rad Ford. Okay, they was pulling up in a Rad Ford, right, with the plastic windows on top. The little things that the little Jeeps and shit had. That's what they was pushing. While other celebrities was pushing and not no slight to them, because some women, not all, but some women is not into all the different. Some women don't know the different luxuries of a name brand type car, so they just like, well, shit, I got me a vehicle to get me from here to there. But they tell you when the celebrities start making fun of them, that's when they start thinking. You know what I'm saying? Like, damn. So this is what happened. They're eating up our riches. So it says, but ye shall be named the priests of the Lord, and men shall call you the ministers of our God, and ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles in their glory, and ye shall boast of yourselves. Just like how they boast over us. Like I say all the time, the person that found LeBron James or signed LeBron James' contract in Cleveland, he like, hey, I got this young little Afro nigga from that play in Akron. He gonna be on our team, and he can do this, he can do that, and he just like, oh, I got LeBron James. So that the white man that signed his check, he can boast on the fact that he has this man playing for him. You know what I'm saying? So in that day, we're gonna be able to boast about how we got these people working for us and doing this and doing that for us, and we just sitting back chilling. We're gonna be able to do that in that day. And we should want to do that in that day because we've been working so hard over here. So I'm going to say shalom.